Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Robins Racing TV. We are of course here on our Sunday evening broadcast for our GT3 Championship. Things got off to an absolute flying start last week. Fantastic race there. If you didn't quite catch that, you will find all of the information and our previous videos in all of our championships on our YouTube channel, which you're currently watching it from. I suggest that you watch that at your leisure though, because we're lined up for a fantastic race here around a classic track with some pretty challenging conditions I've just found out as well on the weather report. So that classic track of course is Brands Hatch. We're here in the UK and it looks as though we've got a forecast for rain for our qualification session in our sprint race tonight. Definitely going to make things interesting. Does look as though the race is going to be overcast though, so these guys are just going to have to try and set their best times in wet conditions for that qualification and then just deal with low track temperatures for the rest of the race. Just come to the end of our practice session now, so you can see the lap times that these boys are currently putting in. Expect them to jump right up in the wet weather conditions for the qualification, which is going to be coming up very shortly. Just whilst we're waiting for that to come up, just to give you a run through of the standings as they stand at the moment. If you are watching or got wind of this from our Instagram feed, you will already have this information, so sorry if I'm repeating myself. At the top of the charts, we currently have Thorsten Smith in first place, sat on 71 points. Duftinho is just behind him on 55 in second place, with Bruce Law in third on 54, so really tight between those two at the moment. Moritz Bitzer, who unfortunately can't make it for this race tonight, he's actually going to be infilled by Dark Ninja for this week. He's currently sat in fourth place with 50 points. Then we've got It's PT in fifth with 45 points, with Uniclark in sixth, just behind him on 37. Traven is in 7th with 33 points. NRP, the league coordinator, sat in 8th on 30, alongside VMX Rider and Travis, who is in 10th, I beg your pardon, on 20. TomTom is in 11th place with 18 points, with Alright Turkish in 12th with 10 points. And then at the bottom of the table, we currently have Evan on 8, Lion's Foot with 7, and then Matthew in 15th with 5 points. So this qualification session's just underway. I'll get myself retired from this and then we'll try and have a look at who's going to go out on track first. You can see there a little bit of light rain, a couple of cars making their way out. It looks as though it's VMX, and I think that might be Thorsten Smith's new livery in the black and yellow. I think it might be. Yeah, it is indeed. He just decides to pull out ahead of VMX, try and get best advantage of that open space. Keep an eye out for any lockups whilst they get used to these wet weather conditions. I'm sure the boys have done plenty of practice, as they were notified that it was going to be wet in qualification, so those setups will be honed in, I'm sure of it. So as ever, let me know your race predictions for this evening. Is it going to be Thorsten Smith ruling the roost once again and trying to leapfrog his way even further into that championship? Or are we going to have an upset? We saw a great showing from VMX Rider, new to the league this season. And he definitely stamped his name and foot of authority onto this championship. Definitely in there to look at mixing things up. But here we go, first lap's about to begin with Thorsten Smith on a hot one. His first outlap's pretty quick anyway, on a 133.3, so definitely moving out of the blocks. Let's see what he can put in as the rest of the boys are now out on track, all drivers out. Do beg your pardon, looks as though I'm having some issues with my telemetry screen. Just trying to reboot that in the meantime whilst we get Thorsten Smith flying around here. And looks as though my telemetry boards are now back up and running. Beg your pardon for the silence. Multitasking with many screens. Anybody that knows me knows it's not my best quality. So Bruce Law in there with a quick time as well on his outlap, 133.7. Can't help but imagine that that's likely to be quicker than maybe some of the boys further down the grid will be able to set when they're on a flyer. Let's see what Thorsten Smith can put in though first time around. 128.1, so setting the benchmark pretty low there in terms of his lap time. You saw earlier on, I think that's around about 5 seconds slower than what they were setting on the dry conditions in free practice. Of course, we do see vast improvements, and Lions Foot getting his way up into third position so far, and they're all about the 128 mark, so the practice has definitely paid off for these boys. Lions Foot there with an absolute screamer though. Let's see whether or not any of these boys can break into the 127s. It's certainly looking possible. Let's jump onto somebody else. Let's have a look at a lad that hasn't set a lap yet. On with our latest addition to the Rubbins Racing staff team here with Evan. Hopefully this won't detract him too much from his concentration. Just about to cross the line. Let's see what he can put in. Looks as though it was invalidated, so he's going to have another crack at this one. 5 minutes remaining of the session. So he's sitting there getting very close on the curbs. Just manages to catch it. Good hold from him. And we've got Duftinio right in the background as well. He's going to try and pick up as much of a tow. I think he has just come out of the pits. So perhaps looking to regroup, maybe picking up a little bit of damage. Getting himself back out on track as soon as possible. Let's keep on with Duftinio. Let's see where he can get up there. But Thorsten Smith currently broken into that 127 margin with a 127.39. And looking at the sectors, he looks to be making it all up in Sector 3 at the moment, compared to his next competition with its PT and Uniclark. So I will update you with any purple sectors, but so far it's Thorsten Smith across the board. Just bringing up Duftinio's now, of course, out on his outlap, so this will be his first flyer. My telemetry's also showing me up a rather large Sector 1, so I don't think that's going to be the case. And now 136 from Duftinio on his outlap. Let's see what he can put in on a flyer. We'll stick with him as we track him around the course. We'll have a look for any movers and shakers further up the field. Currently got It's PT and Bruce Law sat in the pits though, along with Dark Ninja, who's yet to set a lap. Looks as though it was invalid. And then he's gone back into the pits, so potentially picking up a little bit of damage there, having to get it repaired, but only 3.5 minutes remaining inside the qualification session. Dark Ninja, of course, with less time to prepare, running on our reserve lists for this evening. So he's not quite had as much practice, especially in the wet conditions, as the rest of the field, and it looks as though that might well play a factor in his starting position for tonight's first race of the evening. So for those of you that are new to Rubbins Racing at all, or potentially new to this GT3 Championship, 2 races on offer for this evening, 1 sprint and 1 feature. The sprint race is going to last for 20 minutes. It is going to be overcast conditions, no mandatory pit stop, but the damage is turned on, so if you do see anybody coming in, it looks as though they've had a bit of a close encounter with a wall or another car, and the damage has been too great. We'll then go into a rolling start for our second feature race of the evening. That will be a reverse grid roller. There will be a mandatory pit stop for that one, and we're going to be set up for double however many laps, as we see Duftinho there catching a whole lot of wall, just losing it. Managed to get himself onto the side so he doesn't disrupt anybody else's, and luckily he managed to set a 1:27.8 before he got out, so that is him in second place at the moment with 2 minutes remaining on the clock. He is going to go out for another one though to try and get that pole position. Dark Ninja still sat in the pits in his Ferrari, it seems, from the look of that front end. It is indeed. Gold Ferrari with Dark Ninja. Let's have a look at somebody else in the field. It looks as though Bruce Law's been pushed all the way down to 7th place, with Fast As Gamer moving his way up into the top 3, and Uniclark currently broke the 127 mark with a 126.5. That's an absolute flyer, and all of that time it seems to be made up in Sector 1, so that's going to prove really substantial, I think, for the race. That Bentley locked in there through Sector 1. He's, to put it into some perspective, around about 0.8 of a second quicker than anybody else has set in that first sector. The next in line was actually Thorsten Smith on the Sector 1 time, so well done that man. That could well be enough for pole position. We'll have to wait and see. Let's jump on with Thorsten Smith. Let's see whether or not he can improve it. Just coming out of Sector 2 at the moment. Let's have a look at his split times. Doesn't look as though he's going to make any improvements this time around, judging off his Sector 1. We'll have to wait and see though. Uniclark's just gone purple in Sector 1 and 2 that last time around. And makes improvements once again. Takes almost another second off his time, so that Bentley is looking on point around this Brands Hatch GP circuit. Thorsten Smith looks as though he's going to call it a day. Let's jump down to Duftinho. Let's see where he's currently sat in 4th, and he's got a car in front of him. Unfortunately, that is going to end his qualification session. He's going to end up on the 2nd row at best. Lionsfoot's had a good go, and it looks as though he was the car that he collided with. Lionsfoot currently making up the first car in that 3rd row. It's PT. He might have a shot at making an upset with Duftinho or Lionsfoot on this one. In fact, no, his qualification session is completed. I beg your pardon. NRP looks as though he's still on a lap, just completing that final corner. Where's he going to come across the line? No improvement from our lead coordinator there. He's going to start in 8th place or below. So currently following Travis around the track. Travis here is on for quite a good time. Let's see if there is any improvement to be made. And there is. 5th place for Travis then. At the end of that, he pushes Lionsfoot down into 6th position. And that looks as though that is going to be us. Evan's still out on track. Let me just see whereabouts he is. In fact, he's just coming up to the last corner, so he's in with a shout as well. Nope, he ends up abandoning that one, heading into the pit. So that is going to be us, I think, ladies and gents. And that is a running order that we wouldn't have expected. Some real mix-ups there. Uniclark ends up topping out the grid then, with Thorsten Smith making up that first row. Fast as fuck gamer. He ends up starting in 3rd place with Duftinho alongside him. Then we've got Travis in 5th with Lionsfoot. Great qualification from him to get him up into 6th place. Then we've got It's PT in 7th with Bruce Law in 8th. 9th is NRP with Tom alongside him. Evan, good qualification from him in 11th place with All Right Turkish keeping him company. And then we've got Traven and VMX next row along, with Dark Ninja at the back of the pack without a time set. So we're going to be waiting for this rain to blow over, jumping into those overcast conditions for tonight's sprint race. Of course, the boys will have 2 minutes to get the setups adjusted. and get those dry tyres on. Fuel loads will be set, and then we'll be getting the first race of the evening underway very shortly. In the meantime, let me tell you a little bit more about Rubbins Racing in case you're not familiar. We are a clean racing community operating on the PlayStation 4 on Project Cars 2. If you're interested in joining a bunch of clean races, we run 6 championships, but also we have our Hot Lap Challenge, which is set weekly, and we also host a plethora of community races to make sure that your Project Cars 2 isn't interrupted with absolute idiots in public lobbies. Then all you need to do to find out and enlist is go to www.rubbinsracing.co.uk and you'll find how you can join us here on the website. Alternatively, you can add Rubbins Racing to your PlayStation friends list, and inside there you'll find all of the details to our Discord. So just trying to get up my YouTube comments. Let's see if we've got any predictions for today's race. And I better knock my Wi-Fi off, make sure that it doesn't interrupt any of the stream. Looks as though a few predictions coming in, a few supporters for NRP, with Duftino also getting a quick mention there. So some supporters for Duftino. Looks as though J Palms recognised Uniclark's strong qualification, but also recognising that Thorsten Smith is an absolute machine in wet conditions. Anyway, here are the lights. And we're off around Brands Hatch. Looks as though Uniclark bogged down there. He's going to be challenged instantly by Fast As Gamer, moving up through the middle. Is he going to hold on to that first place? Is there going to be any contact as well with Thorsten Smith? Looks as though all drivers away and through clean. Let's jump in. It looks as though Uniclark's having a little look around the outside, but he's going to lose out to Thorsten Smith there. And he's putting himself at risk as well with Travin in that Nissan GTR. So maybe the Bentley, fantastic in the wet, maybe struggling a little bit to put that power down in the dry. We'll have to wait and see how this one pans out. But it is currently Fast As Gamer in first, with Thorsten Smith in second. Uniclark currently sat in third after starting at the front. So Travis is also in fourth place. He's within firing range, and Duftino is currently sat behind those. And as we see Uniclark getting sideways, how much is this going to cost him? I think he's going to end up right behind the pack. We'll keep on board with this. Obviously, the rest of the cars passing through. Looks as though he's found a window of opportunity. Gets himself back out there. But he is going to find himself, I think, in 13th place. Yes, he is indeed. So now Uniclark back up to speed. Let's go and join our front four then. Duftino looks as though he's about to be challenging Travis here for third place. Travis covers off the middle of the track, and then Duftino has to fall back in line to make sure he can make it around turn one. Maybe just cost him a little bit of that momentum that he was gaining. Jump into the chase cam so we can get a good view of this. So it looks as though he's fallen back in line. He's just going to try and wait for that opportunity to pounce, and it's come almost immediately. Moves his way up onto the inside, and that is job done really for Duftino into third place. Travis doesn't want to push it and challenge, because he's going to lose out on a lot more places with any mistake made, that's for sure. So Fast As Gamer currently leading this one out. He's got half a second currently to Thorsten Smith, who is around about 1 second ahead of this battle for third place that we're currently viewing. Worth noting, NRP's got himself into fifth position and looks as though he's going pretty good in terms of his split times. Have to wait and see, but Thorsten's putting the power down into the second sector, only just taking off the sector split of Fast As Gamer. Let's jump on with first and second place. Let's see whether or not this gap gets any shorter. worth mentioning here, NRP has had a fantastic start on this one. Evan as well managed to get himself up into 6th place, and that is definitely going to stand him in good stead if he can maintain that one. It looks as though he's making gains as well. Looking at his split times, they are dropping down, and he's got around about 4 seconds lead ahead of 7th place, which is actually all right Turkish. Currently being challenged by Traven, so let's have a look at that. Yep, there we can see it looks as though Linesfoot ended up going mighty wide. That's going to cost him a couple of places. Is he going to get out ahead of VMX? Looks as though he did initially, but VMX with that inside line, and Linesfoot drops down to 10th position. So back on now, currently following All Right Turkish, who's being challenged by Traven. It looks as though Turkish has ended up finding his momentum once again, and just catching a little bit of grass. Doesn't cost him too much though, and he's maintaining that lead ahead of Traven at the moment. Let's jump back in our battle for the lead. 3 cars dueling it out here within a second at the moment. Jump into our chase cam. Currently on board with Duftinho. But as we saw, as they were approaching that final section, making big gains on 1st and 2nd. See, Fast As Gamer opting for that nice wide line, utilising all of the track, but Thorsten Smits managed to make it up the inside. In fact, looks as though Fast As Gamer has almost been done by both of them. As the two come together, they're going to have to be careful going into this next corner. Plenty of room needs to be given for sure, and Duftinho ends up getting the better of Fast As Gamer as he slips down into 3rd place. So Thorsten Smit now, it's his to lose with 15 minutes remaining of this session. Let's have a look a little bit further down the line. It looks as though VMX has been overtaken by Linesfoot. So we saw VMX with that outstanding debut in the GT3 Championship last week. Looks as though potentially struggling a little bit with this track, but not as much as Linesfoot, as we see him getting well acquainted with that inside Armaco. And that gifts 9th place back to VMX rider, and actually puts Linesfoot down into 12th. We've also got Uniclark and Bruce Law down there in 10th and 11th as well. Wouldn't expect them two to be there. And TomTom looks as though he's having to make a pit stop for what I can only assume is for some damage picked up. And that's put him down into last place. So let's jump back with our battle for 1st and 2nd. Currently between Thorsten Smit, who's got the better of it, over Duftinho at the moment. So remember, these two guys, 1st and 2nd in this race, also 1st and 2nd in the standings, with Thorsten Smit leading that one by, let's have a look here, it's 16 points lead at the moment. 35 points of course given for the win, 1 bonus point for qualifying pole position, and looks as though we've got some action there. In the background, Fast As Gamer looks as though he got caught up. Who was he caught up with? I could just catch it in the background of that picture. I'm not sure who it was with, but we saw Fast As Gamer absolutely spun round, so he's managed to get himself back on track in 5th position, around about 5 seconds ahead of the 6th place of Evan, so hopefully not going to lose too much of a position from that spin. But NRP now sat in 3rd position with a 6-second lead ahead of 4th place, so this is looking good for our lead coordinator NRP, and that'll definitely give his standings a boost after what was a bit of a calamity ridden race last time around, that Le Mans Bugatti circuit. So Thorsten Smit managing to maintain just under half a second lead to Duftinho at the moment, although as we saw last week, Thorsten Smit can dial up. We often see him driving at around about 85%, and then as soon as that gap starts to get a little bit too close for comfort, we see him putting the hammer down and driving as hard as he can. Duftinho though definitely making gains up in Sector 2. It looks as though he's got around about a 15 hundredths of a second on Thorsten Smit in Sector 2, and about 1/10 in Sector 3 as well, so small gains being made. And that's the difference that you can see there in the lap times last time around, with a 125.22 from our leader and a 124.22 from the leader, 124.20 from second place. Let's Let's move down the running order. Looks as though Traven is currently challenging All Right Turkish for that 6th position spot. You see him there sneaking around the outside, just trying to off-put All Right Turkish, trying to make him second guess himself and maybe disturb his line a little bit. It's going to be brave to go around the inside though here. Really hard to hold your line there, not to get any grass and disrupt your line, as it looks as though... Who's that Ferrari in the background? I don't believe it's VMX. VMX, of course, in a yellow Mercedes. I wonder if that's Lion's Foot, actually. Oh, as we see Traven getting all sorts of sideways, that's going to cost him big time. And it does look as though it's a different Ferrari, not the Ferrari of Lion's Foot that was in the background of that. So it just must be a back runner. In fact, it was TomTom. Beg your pardon. TomTom, after leaving the pits, he's currently sat behind that battle. Let's move a little bit further up the running order and keep an eye out on this battle for 6th between All Right Turkish, Traven and soon-to-be VMX, if he can just get himself into shot. Worth noting as well, Duftino has now overtaken the previous race leader, Thorsten Smith, and he's making gains on him as well. In fact, let's jump over to Thorsten Smith's car, see if there's any damage on there. Let's see if it was a collision that caused it. Can't see much. I'd expect to see a bumper hanging off maybe, or some scrapes around the sides, so perhaps a slowdown costing Thorsten Smith there. We're seeing him throttling that Lamborghini to try and make up that time. Duftino with just over half a second lead with a back marker ahead of him. That is the back marker of Dark Ninja in that gold coloured Ferrari. So let's see whether or not this will cause any disruption to the battle for first place. Looks as though both drivers are going to be able to get past the lapped car under those blue flag conditions without any adjustments to the line. So well played there to Dark Ninja. He is of course a staff member, so we'd expect him to know the rules, but sometimes the course can dictate where that overtake can take place and maybe give one of the drivers the advantage. Not this time around though. Down the running order as well, it looks as though a lot of the guys in... It looks as though we've got 4 different clusters, 4 different packs of drivers, and all of them starting to settle in now, except for VMX, who looks as though he's soon to be challenged by the by Uniclark inside Uniclark's Bentley. Let's jump over to that quickly, try and not miss too much of the action. As looked as though Uniclark was having a big sniff up the inside. He's going to get it done this time around though, I think. No, it looks as though he's had to back out just to find his line, so defensive driving on point there from VMX. He's going to have his work cut out though with the high torque of that Bentley. Of course, that Mercedes-Benz AMG no slouch either though. Let's see what they can do through this almost flat out section. Sounds as though there was a downshift as well from VMX there, so managing to just balance the car a little bit by knocking it down a gear. So Thorsten Smith just set the fastest lap of the race so far. He's gone purple with a 124.043. And that's why we can see that lead of Duftino's diminishing ever so slightly. In fact, it's coming down by a couple of tenths now. This battle for 7th though, for 8th place looking pretty tasty. These two drivers right on each other, and of course we have got that red Ferrari for TomTom currently in 14th place. That'll have to relinquish the racing line very shortly once these guys come up to him. Doesn't look as though any of the drivers looking to take a risk at the moment, and we've actually had a driver looks as though disconnected. Just trying to take a look at the sheet just to see who it is that we've lost. I'm struggling to see who it was, but we did have a full lobby at the start of this race and we're currently down to 14th, so I'm sure that'll become apparent by the end. As we see there, VMX now really going to have to get his best defensive foot forward with that challenge from Uniclark. Uniclark all over the back of him. Has a look up the inside. Looks as though they might have come together. Clark allowing VMX to return to the track though in his position, so good driving from those two. As we see a little flash of the lights there in acknowledgement. Let's jump back to our battle for first place. Looks as though Thorsten Schmidt now under the half-second mark by quite a bit. Only 0.3 separating these two drivers. Thorsten Schmidt looks as though he's dialed it up, clawing back those tenths each lap around. And now got himself within firing range in these final 6 minutes of the session. Watch my commentary there. Spurred Duftinho on. Looks as though he managed to extend that gap a little bit. The split times don't lie though, and it's currently at 35 tenths. So he's going to have to do all that he can to hold off the Berliner here. You can see there the distance between these two drivers and the third place of NRP. We only just saw NRP coming around that final bend as these two were just about to exit shot. So pretty much 8 seconds at the moment between him and the third place of NRP. NRP, of course, having an absolute blinder after a distinctively average qualification time. Left him towards the back of the pack, made it all up through to errors ahead of him and through an outstanding start. So he'll be licking his chops to get a hold of a podium in tonight's first race. And that'll give his standings a much needed boost. But focusing on first, is there going to be a mistake made, or is it going to have to take some risk being met by Thorsten Schmidt in order to get himself ahead of our young Czech driver here? Duftinho driving the absolute socks off that Lamborghini to maintain first place. Let's just have a quick look at our timing board. We can see Evan is the only guy with a penalty in the top 12. So Thorsten Schmidt's going to have to do it the old-fashioned way of just getting his car ahead of Duftinho's. Just about to enter lap 12 here. Slightly over 4 minutes remaining of the session. Thorsten Schmidt looks as though he lost a little bit of time that time around about 2 tenths off Duftinho. It looks as though it was just spread evenly among them, so perhaps pushing that little bit too hard. Let's have a look at our current battle for 5th place. We've got in between Traven, Turkish and Evan, so fantastic current standings in the race from Alright Turkish and Evan, who quite often finds himself towards the lower end of the grid. He's got himself in with a shout at the top 10 finish here. In fact, he can even get himself in 5th place because he's not too far away from the 5th place of Traven. 3 minutes to do it though. Let's see whether or not any mistakes are made or if anyone decides to take a punt. You can see there Bruce Law currently on the back of VMX, and these two battling it out. Let's have a look at this. So VMX, I saw the positions jumping up and down. We'll switch over to this one. This is a battle for 8th place at the moment. And yeah, they must have exchanged positions whilst they were off screen about 3 times. As we see Bruce now trying to make gains up through the flat out section of this course. AMG versus AMG at the moment. All of them looking pretty tidy, but that AMG of Bruce Law's looks as though it's been in a couple of scuffles throughout this race, and that's probably the reason why he's finding himself outside of the top 10. Looks as though, I think that might be TomTom as well, just finding himself straying off course. It is indeed the red and blue livery Ferrari of TomTom. Lionsfoot's just behind him in the fully red Ferrari, and it looks as though that battle for 8th place is subsided a little bit. Let's jump back over to the battle for 5th. Let's have a look how this one's panning out. Looks to be pretty much all the same here. Traven lead now ahead of All Right Turkish, who's got a little bit of a lead to Evan, but Evan there looks as though he made up a bit of time, and we see Turkish getting a little bit sloppy on the exit of that corner. So Evan now looking up the inside. Let's jump back over to this. We'll allow Traven to drive ahead of us. Looks as though the battle for 6th place is where it's at, and unfortunately Evan with a slowdown there, I think, and just having to ease off and allow that to go forwards. Evan, of course, with a 3-second lead, so it looks as though he is going to find himself in 7th place unless he can get 3 seconds ahead of the 6th place of All Right Turkish. Let's jump back to our leaders. Just over a minute to go. We're currently just crossed the line here, so within sector 1 here. 1 minute to go, so it looks as though we're going to have one final lap after this one once the timer runs out, and Thorsten Smith within less than half a second, as he has been for a grand proportion of this race. Just bringing up the splits now. And we're talking 500ths difference between 1st and 2nd place here in terms of the splits through sector 1. Nothing in it at all. Fantastic drive from both of these guys. Kept it clean all the way through. As we see Duftino there getting a little bit loose on exit, it looks as though we lost a bit of momentum, and that's going to allow Thorsten Smith to get even closer to the dual exhaust of that Lamborghini. Hugging the inside as well, as Thorsten has a little bit of a look up there. That gets blocked by Duftino as we enter the final lap. Just managing to cross the line before the timer runs out, so there will be one more lap remaining. It's all or nothing for Thorsten Smith. Is he going to take a gamble up the inside? Decides against it, but he is hanging on the coattails there of Duftino. Catches a little bit of grass, and that's going to slow him down, I think. So advantage Duftino as we exit sector 1. Managing to make it up to just under half a second. Looks as though we've had another disconnect there. So only 13 drivers remain. Unfortunate to see. As I try and figure out who it is from that running order. Unfortunately, I cannot just concentrate quick enough. Looks as though Duftino was about to be challenged there by Thorsten Smith. Thorsten Smith is right on it here and pushing Duftino to his absolute limits in terms of holding his line and holding his track position. Is that NRP that's just gone out? I'm not too sure. No, it's not. I do beg your pardon. It looks as though it might have been Evan. But no, Duftino manages to hold it off. He finishes ahead of Thorsten Smith. He ends up taking the lead. Fantastic drive from him. Also notable from Thorsten Smith. But here he comes NRP after starting in 9th position, I think. Ends up getting a podium. Fantastic drive from our lead coordinator there. Looks as though Fastest Gamer has ended up recovering from his big spin. Found himself down and around about 5th place. He's going to end up putting in a recovery. Going to finish this race in 4th position. As he crosses the line, next on the firing line is going to be Traven. Not sure whether or not these boys are going to be able to finish their laps though, so they're going to show up as DNF so long as they've completed an adequate amount of laps, over 80% of the laps completed, and they will get their points. I will try and summarise as well who ended up getting disconnected. Looks as though Dark Ninja was one of them, now that I can concentrate on the running order. Just not sure on the other disconnect. So 15 seconds of the session remaining for these guys to finish them. All Right Turkish getting a 6th place out of that, so great finish from him. He'll be made up with that one, I'm sure. Did of course have a fantastic sprint race last week, unfortunately his feature did let him down. So here is your running order for tonight's sprint race. Duftino, of course, taking that top spot, just quarter of a second ahead of the second placed of Thorsten Smith. Now changed his name to Thorsten Borgard. NRP ends up finishing in third with Fast As Gamer in fourth position. Traven finishes in fifth with Turkish just behind him. Great race again from All Right Turkish. VMX Rider finds himself in seventh place with Lions Foot in eighth for company. Bruce Law, disappointing race from him, and Una Clark find themselves in 9th and 10th respectively. It's BT ends up just clinging on to 11th, and Evan finishes the race in 12th position, with the rest of the drivers unfortunately not qualifying for any points due to disconnects. We will of course be jumping into tonight's rolling feature race after around about a 10-minute gap. Let these guys get themselves settled, have themselves a little break, and then, as I mentioned, we will be getting this one underway. All of our drivers that did get disconnected, they're going to be brought back into the lobby, and they'll finish all at the back of the grid. At the back of the grid for this rolling start. So it is actually going to be Evan that leads this one out. I'm pretty sure last time we saw Evan leading a feature race out, he did really well in holding that position for a long amount of time. So he'll be happy about that after what was a pretty disappointing race, as we saw him having to park his car just on the final corner. I'll have a listen while the guys are inside the paddock and try and find out what happened there. I suspect it was some damage picked up. It looks as though the guys that got disconnected are now finding their way back into the server. That's good to see. Still missing two though. We'll have to wait and find out whether or not they can get themselves back in. So, ladies and gents, run you through our running order for today's feature. Once again, Evan is going to be in first place once the guys get off the line. Then it's going to be It's PT. Followed by Una Clark with Bruce Law behind him, then Lions Foot behind Bruce Law with VMX Rider in tow behind Lions Foot. Then it's going to be All Right Turkish followed by Traven, who's going to have Fast As Gamer just behind him with NRP sat behind him. Then Thorsten Smith behind NRP followed by Duftino, and then followed by our remaining drivers. Not sure who the lead coordinator has given the final positions to. He'll generally mix it up between the guys that were disconnected. Hopefully all the guys' connection issues will be sorted out now, and we're going to see 15 drivers finish this race. Ladies and gents, this will be the start of their formation lap. So a lot of them moving over to the side, allowing the drivers to come through cleanly. Do beg your pardon, ladies and gents. It looks as though that was reading mine a little bit wrong. It looks as though because Evan ended up running out of fuel, it's going to be It's PT that leads this one out. So Evan's going to be around about the back of it. to find him here on that running order. In fact, it looks as though he's been replaced by James Hurlow. So I'm not sure what's happened there. Well, Evan out of the race. Of course, it's PT currently dictating the pace. Restricted at the moment. These guys will get lined up towards the final corner, and then once they get round that final corner, it'll be PT who decides when this race begins. As soon as he puts his foot down, the race is on. There'll be no overtaking up until that point, until they cross the line. Of course, if it's PT ends up blinking and these guys cross the line first, the race will be on. Just approaching now this final corner as we see the grid lines coming up. See it's PT slowing down, allowing that grid to bunch up a little bit. Looks as though all of the pack except for Dark Ninja find himself at the back, and that is the one. Hammer is down, the race is on. It's PT putting it into the first corner. Looked as though Dark Ninja was a little bit late to the party, as was Hurlow. But looks as though they managed to get to the back of the pack just in time. So they didn't get too caught off guard. Uniclark will want to try and make that place past past its PT as soon as possible. But remember what I said earlier, its PT had an absolute stonking fastest lap, so he's definitely capable. As we see a load of action there at the back of the grid. Who was that? I saw a few cars coming off the track. It looks as though it may have been Fast As Gamer as he finds himself seconds behind the rest of the track, the rest of the pack there. Jump back over to first position. HPT is still leading ahead of Uniclark with Bruce Law in close company as well. See the red Ferrari of Lionsfoot there in the background as well, so gap has formed already. But we'll see whether or not that extends or whether or not Lionsfoot can catch up to the back of this pack. Oh, as we see, it's PT absolutely eating the wall there. Looked as though he just caught a bit of oversteer, unable to catch it, and he went wallwards. Where's that left him? Looks as though it's second from last, so all of that gain potential that he had from starting in first place now results to next to nothing, as we see Duftinho and Thorsten Smith making that early pit stop. It's become a characteristic of them. Bruce Law looks as though he's running a little bit wide. Is that going to be a slowdown? Don't think it is. Looks as though he's managed to keep it within the track limits, so just catching up a bit of grass. As we see Fast As Gamer as well jumping into the pit stop. That's probably a wise move from him. Try and get himself into that open air, make up the position, and then try and leapfrog everyone when everybody else comes into the pits. So Uniclark leading ahead of Bruce Law at the moment. Lionsfoot is only around about second and 3/4 behind them, so not much of a distance. It looks to be further than what it actually is. Let's have a look at the battle for 7th place at the moment between TomTom and Travis. Travis looking around the outside there in that black Nissan GTR. Looks as though he's got the move done as well. Can he hold it into this next corner? They do come together. It looks as though both drivers able to sustain it. No foul, but it does look as though TomTom has to slow down. That allows Alright Turkish and his R8 to fly right through. Alright Turkish wasn't going to blink at that opportunity. Let's have a look at this current battle for 5th that's developing between Traven and NRP. NRP deciding to leave it and jump into the pits. And we see another driver as well. I think that was Traven. I beg your pardon, it's Travis. Currently in the pits as well. So back on then with this battle for 6th place now between Alright Turkish in 6th and TomTom in 7th. TomTom right up the back of him. We saw that Ferrari of TomTom's battered. Looks as though he's just strayed over the track limits, though that's going to be a slowdown or a time penalty depending on which way he decides to play it. And looks as though we've got an Z4, I think that is, of Hurlo in 8th place. So after what was a bit of a shocking start for him, and he almost didn't catch up to the back of the pack for the rolling start, he's managed to get himself in a good position now after the guys have taken the pit stops early. Let's see whether or not he can capitalise on this. Bruce Law currently leads out this race. He's got around about 3/4 of a second ahead of Clark at the moment. Lionsfoot managing to sustain that 3rd position, around about 2 seconds behind the leaders, and it looks as though its PT is now catching up to the back of this pack that we're following in the battle for 6th place. So he'll want to try and get himself right alongside these and pass them as soon as possible. We know he's got the pace, he just needs to keep that car on the straight and narrow. So Thorsten Smith and Duftinho both setting purple sectors between themselves at the moment after their early pit stop. Thorsten Smith actually 7 seconds ahead of Duftinho, so I wonder whether or not Duftinho had a little bit more going on in terms of the pit, or maybe he messed up his pit lane entry. I'm not too sure, as we see VMX, TomTom and its PT now into the pits. So it looks as though between 1st and 7th yet to pit, and everybody else has now made their mandatory pit stop. Let's jump down the action. Let's have a look at NRP currently challenging his good friend VMX. In fact, I beg your pardon, it's VMX looking to try and catch up on it. NRP is currently challenging Dark Ninja. Dark Ninja gets very wide there into the kiddie litter. He's going to get back on track ahead of the rest, but he's going all sorts of sideways. And look, it looks as though he's about to be taken by both VMX and Travis. It looked as though he got out of shapes into the corner, and as he tried to straighten himself back up, just couldn't get that car on the straight and narrow in time. Got picked off by Travis and VMX there. Lionsfoot is now into the pits. Let's see where this lands him. It looks as though he's going to come out in 6th position, so long as it's a good enough stop. But Thorsten Smith is the next in line. Let's have a look where he is in terms of track position. In fact, it looks as though Lionsfoot is going to get done by our 2 championship 1st and 2nd sitters. He's in there just leaving the pit lane, but it isn't enough. Thorsten Smith ends up taking 6th place with Duftinho in 7th. Although that early pit from Lionsfoot is going to be good enough to get him ahead of the 10th place of Travis. It looks as though Alright Turkish is about to be challenged by Hurlo. Battling for 4th place that we're following at the moment. Alright Turkish new to the championship this season. Hurlo as a ringer, I think. Not sure what's happened to Evan there. But it looks as though Hurlo replacing Evan at the last minute for the feature. As Turkish gets very defensive on the inside there. Covers off the inside line. Hurlo looks as though he's equal to it though. Second guessing and trying to force an error at the moment. And he may well have just got it. Is he going to maintain the inside into the final corner? Looks as though he thinks better of it. Instead of getting his front taken off there by Alright Turkish, he's going to come back and fight again next lap around. Great battle here for 4th position. Of course, these guys do need to make a pit stop, as we see Alright Turkish there making a late dive into the line of Hurlo. Hurlo will be screaming something behind his microphone, I'm sure. But no harm, no foul here. Just a little bit of time lost to Hurlo. Let's have a look at how it's going between Thorsten Smith and Duftinho. We'll have a little touch onto these. Of course, Duftinho managing to finish ahead of Thorsten last time around in the sprint race. Thorsten Smith currently holding on to the advantage here in tonight's feature, and holding on by round about a second at the moment between those two. Jump back to that battle. In fact, let's have a little bit of a look further down the order. Lionsfoot is currently being challenged by Travis. See what Travis can do in that GTR. he's been making that GTR work, especially in certain sectors, really hooking it together. Duftinho, last time around, by the way, just set a purple lap time with a 124.015. Thorsten's the only one getting within the 124s with a 124.061, so only Rizzler papers between the two, as we see Travis there just having a little look, decides against it. GTR holding its own against a Ferrari at the moment. I think just losing out when it comes to these long wound straights. The Ferrari just edging ahead, but then it comes down to braking and into the corners, and we see that Nissan getting much closer to the Ferrari. So we see him there having a little look up the inside, decides against it. He might go for a cutback here if Linesfoot runs wide. He almost got it done as well. Linesfoot just blocking off the exit of that corner superbly to keep on hold of 9th position at the moment. We can of course see NRP in the foreground of these shots, but we see Travis there make a move up the inside. He's going to get that one stuck for sure. No chance that Linesfoot's going to get around him. He's stuck onto the outside now, so it looks as though Travis is going to maintain the advantage, but that Ferrari in the straights is just eating him alive. Let's see what happens into the corner. Inside line is playing off. Linesfoot having a look up the inside on this one, and that's one where you can run deep. He does well to avoid any contact there. You want to try and hold far left onto that right-hander to keep your momentum and make sure that you don't get any oversteers. We see him potentially cutting those track limits. That might well be a slowdown for Linesfoot, so he's going to have to ease off, I think. Let's have a look up the running order. Bruce Law is 1.7 seconds ahead of Uniclark in second place at the moment. Then we've got Travin, who's made his way all the way up. Remember, these top 5 drivers yet to pit. So Thorsten Smith is our sort of provisional leader here in 6th place at the moment. He's got 20 seconds behind the leader, and I can imagine that their pit stops are going to last longer than that. So Bruce Law's going to have to try and extend that lead as much as he can to try and come out around about the podium position. Interesting though, that Thorsten Smith has now been able to pull out a 1.5 second lead to his nearest rival in Duftinho. So Duftinho is actually at risk of Bruce Law if Bruce Law gets a good pit stop on this one. We'll have to wait and see when he comes in. We will keep track of all of that action. We're currently following Linesfoot with Travis and NRP at the moment. Is NRP at risk from the pace of Travis at the moment? Looks as though that last time around he's around about 0.4 of a second quicker than the current 8th place lead coordinator. So definitely making small gains, and soon NRP is going to have that black Nissan GTR in his rearview mirror. He's going to have to get his defensive lines on. Looks as though James Hurlow now coming in to the pits in 7th position. He's about to drop down that running order as we see 3 drivers crossing the line. Only just entering the pits as well, so he might well be at risk of losing a further position. So it's PT, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Yep, it's PT now taking him over, and VMX. So Hurlow looks as though he was screwed over a little bit there by when he's come into the pits. Alright, Turkish still managing to maintain that 5th position, but let that be said, that is Duftinho behind him. So right, Turkish yet to make a pit stop. Duftinho has made his mandatory pit, but this is a green flag. There is no blue flag with this. He's not being lapped. This is all for race position, so he's not going to make it easy for Duftinho, I don't think. And this will just be playing into the advantage of Thorsten Smith, who's currently sat in 4th position. Duftinho tries to have a look around, but unable to get around that RDR8 at the moment. Let's see whether or not he can get it done into the final corner. And to put this into perspective, Thorsten Smith's just set a purple lap last time around with a 123.7. Let's have a look at how much this battle for 5th place has cost Duftinho in terms of his lap time. 126.8, so huge gains made. as Duftinho tried to get around All Right Turkish. He has now got that done, so he's got clear air ahead of him, and looks as though the total damage is around about 2 seconds lost by Duftinho in trying to get around All Right Turkish in that battle. Let's have a look at a battle for position at the moment. NRP looks as though he's about to come around a back marker, I think. Not sure whether or not that is Dark Ninja, perhaps in a different livery. It is indeed. Dark Ninja throwing in some confusion, changing out his gold car for a blue and yellow Ferrari. But those two drivers get past the back marker with relative ease. NRP, of course, currently sat in 7th position, but Travis is doing all he can to make sure that he's going to get knocked down into 8th. Not enough for you now, though. Got about half a second lead ahead of Travis at the moment, given to NRP. So we can build upon it. Looks as though track limits were breached there. Let's bring up the timing boards. Let's see whether or not we've got any penalties to play with. So 2 seconds to Uniclark, 1 second to Traven, and 1 second for All Right Turkish at the moment. So the top 3 decide to keep out on track for another lap. Interesting, let's have a look down to Thorsten Smith. We'll follow him around and we can just see the red and black liveried Lambo of Duftinho in the background. I think this will give us a shot to see the distance there. Looks to be a few hundred yards maybe. Looking at the splits as well, Thorsten's ended up putting consistent 123s in the last couple of laps, I think. Perhaps my leaderboard is lagged out on my telemetry panel because it's actually showing a 124.6 last time around from Thorsten Smith. So perhaps having some timing issues there for me. Oh, beg your pardon, I'm on the fastest lap screen. Back in sync now as we see Uniclark entering the pits. Let's have a look. Looks to just be leaving at the moment, so Thorsten Smith's going to get past him. Is Duftinho? I think he is. He has indeed. So Duftinho finding himself in a good position there. He would have been fuming if he found himself behind the well-paced Uniclark inside that Bentley. Would have been much tougher to get past. And compared to All Right Turkish, and All Right Turkish certainly held up Duftinho for a couple of corners at least. So Bruce Law leads this one out. Currently got 17.5 seconds ahead of Thorsten Smith in 3rd place. So he's not going to get that free pit stop, I don't think. And off the top of my head, if Bruce Law was to pit this time around, he's going to come out around about 6th position. That's provided, of course, that there isn't any damage on Bruce's car. Let's have a look for our nearest battle at the moment. Looks as though Travis and NRP are still going toe-to-toe. Just no way past at the moment for Travis in that battle. Looks as though VMX is currently being challenged as well by the Ferrari of TomTom. Less than half a second between these two at the moment. Seems like VMX just struggling to get the pace. It looks as though he's got the consistency, but just struggling for the pace around this Brands Hatch GP circuit. Perhaps it's just a familiarity. To wait and see how he finishes. Of course, a few drivers yet to make the pit stops. Well, 2 drivers in fact, with Bruce Law and Traven. If there is any damage, who knows what could happen, as we see a couple of disconnects there. Not sure what's happened. Just having a quick look through, it looks as though Dark Ninja's gone again, and he may well have taken somebody with him. Down to 3 inside the field. Fast As Gamer is in 13th place with Hurlo in 12th. VMX, who are currently following around. In fact, who was chasing VMX? It was It was TomTom, wasn't it? It looks as though TomTom's been dropped from the server. Unfortunate series of events there. It looked as though as one went, another one got dragged out with him. An unfortunate thing to see. So we're going to run this one with 13 drivers. Hopefully this will be a full field as we can get finishing this race. Let's have a look at the action. Once again, it looks as though Travis has finally got past NRP for that 7th position. You can hear the whistling of that Nissan GTR. It sounds fantastic if you're into that sort of thing. Of course, the AMG with that throaty V8 also making an absolute thumper of a noise. NRP looking to try and make this one back. He has a little look up the inside. Looked as though he could have got it, as well as we see Travis into the middle of the track, and NRP looks as though he's cut a load of grass. Manages to keep it in a straight line. Back on track now. That's going to have cost him a couple, maybe a tenth or two. But great recovery there from NRP. Very sideways. Looks as though the AMG is just throwing down the power a little bit too much. Wanting to spin him out as he got the power back on the exit of the corner. It looks as though these guys are now catching up to All Right Turkish. Let's jump into the chase cam of this. Let's see how far away they are. Yep, that is the Audi R8 of All Right Turkish ahead of them. And they're making really big gains here. I wonder if that's a slowdown. Looks as though he's already got a 1 second penalty. He doesn't want to try and gain any more on that one. So Bruce Law is still leading the race, still yet to pit though. Lap 16 of 31 here in our feature race of the evening. So plenty left to go. We've only just crossed the halfway point. Ductinio is really setting the pace in terms of his battle between Thorsten Schmidt. Half a second that last lap around, and only I'd say a few hundredths off the current purple lap set by Thorsten Schmidt. Let's jump back trackside. Let's have a look how this battle progresses. NRP has lost a little bit of time. Looks as though Lionsfoot as well was getting a little bit sideways in the background of that shot. He might well soon be challenged by ItsPT. Let's have a look here between those two. As Lionsfoot gets onto the grass, that's going to allow ItsPT through. Lionsfoot able to get himself back on track, but he has lost out to the white liveried Ferrari of ItsPT. So ItsPT making his way up to 9th position. Let's jump back to the battle. In fact, we've got a battle for 2nd place as Traven now makes his way into the pit. So that's going to release Thorsten Schmidt and Ductinio into 2nd and 3rd respectively, with only Bruce Law ahead of them, who's yet to pit. So this one playing out nicely. 13.5 seconds is the lead between Bruce Law and Ductinio, I beg your pardon. So they've got 12.5 seconds lead against the 2nd place of Thorsten Schmidt. It looks as though a pit very shortly from Bruce Law might just find him coming out around about 4th position. So we'll have to wait and see when he decides to make that happen. Keep an eye out on his lap times, but Bruce Law's current fastest lap of this race is a 1:25 on the nose. Last time around a 1:25.9, so I wouldn't say he's too far off his pace at the moment. It's just the pace of Thorsten Schmidt and Ductinio is heads and shoulders above, and there it is, pit stop from Bruce Law. Decides to take it in. I think personally that's the right call. That's probably going to find him in 5th position, maybe even 4th. But here comes Thorsten Schmidt and Ductinio about to make their way into 1st and 2nd place. Let's have a look at where Uniclark is. So Bruce Law is coming out of the pits as Uniclark is just coming around the final corner. Looks as though great decision by Bruce Law. He ends up getting himself into 3rd place. He's now running the rest of this race without any further pit stops. You see that AMG just wants to drift around every single corner. So fantastic driving here from our man from Cheshire. Looks like it's behaving in typical Mercedes-Benz AMG fashion. Looks as though it's just stepping out every single corner, but Bruce Law able to hold it. And it's almost like a showpiece. I need to jump off because I could watch that all night. Let's jump down into the 5th position battle. It looks as though it's between Uniclark and Travis. They end up coming together there. Travis getting the better of him, but looks as though Uniclark's got the inside line. I beg your pardon, is this Travis and Travin? It is Travis and Travin at the moment. One of them's going to have to give up, or they're going to come together here. It looks as though Travin falls in line. And MRP's right up his trumpet as well, trying to seize any opportunity he can to gain on that position. Let's jump into chase cam and watch this battle develop. So we're currently focused on NRP in the blue AMG. We've then got Travin ahead of him in the Lamborghini, and ahead of him Travis in that Nissan GTR. Nicky there all over the back of him, looks to go for the wide line as we see a big movement there. Bit naughty, I think, of Travin within the braking area. NRP looking to get away from it, but he has left the inside open. Looks as though Travin goes for a cutback. Let's jump into the trackside view and get a good idea of these three guys and how they're holding themselves on track. It looks as though it's PT is soon to be catching up as we see another driver unfortunately disconnected. Looks as though it's Fast As Gamer is now out of the lobby, so we're running with 12 at the moment. Didn't see when he was gone, but I have only just noticed. It looks as though Fast As Gamer has retired from this race. Beg your pardon, he's just put up a message there correcting me. Oh, as we see Travin getting all sorts of sideways. That's going to release NRP through into 6th position, and it's going to put him at risk of its PT pretty soon as well, I think. So this one develops. So in the battle for the top, I'll do it just via description. Thorsten Smith is currently 1.5 seconds ahead of 2nd place Tuftinho. Bruce Law has found himself in 3rd place after a well-timed pit stop. So getting his pit strategy right on the money there. And he's got around about 3.5 seconds ahead of 4th place of Uniclark, which is just out of shot from this battle, I think. Because he's around about 10 seconds ahead of 5th place. And we can currently see in the foreground of these sweeping images, focused of course on the blue Mercedes of NRP, but Travin and its PT just behind him. Any mistakes are going to be costly, as we're currently in lap 20 of this lap 31 race. Laps coming thick and fast, of course. Oh, big mistake there from NRP. Gets a big wobble on, manages to catch it once again. I think that brand new Fanatec CSL Elite is paying dividends in terms of catching this Leary AMG. Well done, that man. Give him a goldfish. He's lived to fight another day. Holds on to 6th place for now. He has, of course, lost some time to our Irishman Travis in 5th place, who's really proving that it doesn't have to be a Lamborghini or AMG to set some good pace in this GT3 series. I think he's the only driver I've ever seen take on the Nissan GTR, and he's making it work to some extent. Unable to challenge the top two, but certainly putting in some consistent times. Let's have a look at the current battle below the pack. Its PT is trying to jump all over the back of Travin. Traven, of course, just slipping out of shot, and we can still see the battle that we're focused on ahead of MRP and Travis. HPT's actually had quite a good race considering. Had a very dramatic start to it. Starting in second place, found himself all the way down the field after a mistake was made. Couldn't get himself back on track safely, so he had to pretty much work from the back of the pack. HPT lapping around about 1.1 seconds quicker than Traven last time around, and that's where we're seeing this being made up. Just catches the rear end of him though, as that Lamborghini gets a little bit oversteer. It ends up snapping back. The Ferrari looks to the inside, then jinks over to the outside. Tried to make it work, but it's ended up costing him there, getting a little bit too wide. He manages to keep his car going the right direction. He gets that car back on track, but that is going to be a considerable loss in pace between him. Let's have a look at this battle for first place now between Thorsten Smith, still leading out this one, but Duftino is right up his trumpet within 17 tenths now. You see Duftino getting mighty wide. That's going to be a slowdown. Let's bring up the timing. So Duftino with a 2-second time penalty to be added on by the race director at the end of this race. That's going to be significant as well to how this one finishes out. That's why Duftino now eager to get ahead of Thorsten Smith to try and make up a 2-second lead. Otherwise, this victory is going to be going to the Germans. Anything can happen though. Currently 8 laps remaining in this one as we try and pass the back marker of Hurlo there. I think he's currently sat in last place out of the remaining 12 runners. Just having a look at the time. Looks as though the pace is actually slowed down through all of the field, really. I think Thorsten Smith's defensive driving is costing him, but the rest of the drivers look as though they're struggling to hook it up. Tyre wear might well be a factor in this. A lot of mechanical grip being used by these cars. So the tyres getting tortured as we see the two drivers side by side. Duftino ends up relinquishing the place back into second, falls back into his slipstream. He's going to have to try and fight it again as we enter lap 24 out of 31 now. It's Thorsten Smith doing everything he can to keep the red and black Lamborghini of Duftino behind him. This is just going to be an absolutely fantastic series, I think, between these two. We saw it, of course, last season with Jasko VR having to hold off the two drivers. Jasko VR taking a seat for season 3 this year. So it's now between these two. And our next quick is just unable to get anywhere near them. So two distinctive leaders here. Moritz Pizza can give them a run for the money, but it doesn't look as though he's able to keep the consistency to challenge them when it comes down to the feature races. Don't rule him out though. He'll be back next week, I'm sure, and you'll see him all over these two looking for a podium position. Competent new addition for season 3 in terms of Moritz Pizza. Did join towards the end of last season. We hope to have him back very shortly. If you're watching tonight, Moritz, hope to see you on this grid next Sunday for sure. So Bruce Law, let's have a look at him. He's around about 5 seconds ahead of 4th place Uniclark, so he's made small gains to try and give him a cushion of security. And the lap times are really similar between Bruce Law and Uniclark, so they'll be looking to try and maintain that. Bruce having the easiest of weeks really. Had a torrid time last week in the GT3s. He's also had a bit of an upset in terms of the Formula Renault in this morning's race. Unfortunately getting involved in the wrong kind of action, and that found him finishing much further down the lineup than we'd expect. It looks as though it's all come right for him tonight. Third place, he'll be happy with that. I'm sure as happy as NRP was with his podium in the sprint. So 6 laps remaining in this one. The battle is still very much on between Thorsten Schmidt and Dovtinho. Let's just check on the timings though for 4-second penalty to be applied by Dovtinho now at the end of the race. So he's going to have to make up at least 4 seconds of a lead ahead of Thorsten in order to take this race victory. Looking down the rest of the order, looks as though we've got 2-second penalties from Uniclark, Travis, NRP and Traven, with 1-second penalties being applied to Allright Turkish and Hurlo towards the back of the grid. Let's have a look down the order. Looks as though we've still got a continuing battle between Travis and NRP. These two have been going at it hammer and tongs throughout most of this race. Advantage is currently sat with Travis, but NRP isn't letting it go early. We've also got a battle brewing between Allright Turkish and VMX. That one a little bit further off the pace though, so we'll keep an eye out on these as we see Dovtinho slipping away as well. He drops down to past a second now. Looks as though he's having a torrid sector 2 this time around, Dovtinho. I'm guessing it's a slowdown because we can see that that gap clawing back in ever so slightly. Goes back to sub 1 second. Unfortunately, only 13 drivers remain. It looks as though Dark Ninja having connection issues. We also had Fast As Gamer having to retire from the race. Not sure what happened to him, or wonder whether or not he perhaps just sustained too much damage and felt like he couldn't carry on. And I think it was TomTom as well, got disconnected when Dark Ninja left the lobby. Unfortunate to see that. Yeah, message through from Fast As Gamer, just sustained too much damage, could not continue. So sad to see, but Dovtinho looks as though, I do beg your pardon, when I was running through that message, Dovtinho's made a huge lead up from Thorsten Schmidt. I'm assuming it's a mistake from Thorsten, and even with his 4-second penalty, it looks as though Dovtinho's got this one pretty much in the bag. Let's have a look at Thorsten Schmidt. Looks as though front end going wild there. He's really putting his foot down. I can imagine he's got white knuckles gripping that steering wheel. I think a mistake's been made, maybe caught a wall, because I can see some damage to the front left hand side of his car. But turnout for the books there on lap 27. Dovtinho takes the lead, and even with a 4-second penalty, looks like he's going to get this one. We can see Thorsten Schmidt now gritting his teeth and perhaps driving a little bit too hard. We'll have to wait and see what his lap times come in at, but really pushing that car right on the edge of its limits, trying to make up that gap. It does look to be slipping away from him, driving perhaps a little bit too hard, and there is such a thing as that. We'll keep an eye out on that position. Let's jump back to the battle for 5th place that's been brewing for almost an eternity here between Travis and NRP. NRP looks to be just mainly maintaining that distance between them. Lap times are looking pretty comparative. Last lap round was a 125.458 from Travis, with a 125.5 dead for NRP, so nothing between these two guys really, and that's why we're seeing this to-in and throw-in in the split times. Looks as though we've got a much closer battle forming up between Traven and It's PT at the moment. Just having a look at their last lap around, looks as though Traven lost out some time, and that's allowed It's PT to get within the envelope. Lap 28 now of 31, as we see Thorsten Schmidt's actually looking like he might come under pressure from Bruce Law if this carries on. Wonder if he sustained some damage to that front left. You can see him twitching all over the place and grabbing a little bit as well. I suspect that there's some damage to that Lamborghini, and that's going to put him within reach of Bruce Law pretty soon, losing a whole host of time. Coutinho though, 1:30.3 that time around, so I wonder if he's slowed down the pace or maybe he's made a mistake. Not going to leave this battle for second though at the moment. This will be a fantastic race from Bruce Law if he manages to get past him, and it looks like it's almost inevitable. Thorsten Smith there moving to the inside, potentially allowing the much quicker undamaged car of Bruce Law through. Smart move from him. Last thing he wants to do is find himself putting even more damage onto the car and find himself with a steward's penalty applied for any accidents caused. So Bruce Law making his strategy work for him, and I think that's going to pay off dividends with a second place finish. I can imagine some of the choice words being said by Thorsten Smith though. Be interesting to find out from him what happened after that. Coutinho now on lap 29 of 31 with a 13.7 second lead to the second place of Bruce Law. Thorsten Smith sat 15 seconds behind him and losing time. I beg your pardon, he's just made a small gain actually. But that last lap around, Thorsten Smith at 1:32.9, that is miles off the pace. That just pretty much confirms. I think Thorsten's got some pretty severe damage. I wonder if he's caught a wall somewhere around it, and that's where his lead got lost between him and Coutinho. Looks as though he is going to be able to hold on to third place though. The fourth place of Uniclark, we could just see him coming around that final bend at the start of it anyway, so he's currently around about 6 seconds behind German in third. Oh, maybe I spoke too soon. Thorsten Smith eats a whole lot of wall. That's going to be severe damage, I'm sure, and that's going to allow Uniclark to pass through. Thorsten Smith's going to do well to get this one finished, I think, after the damage sustained with that. Is he going to lose out to any more places? He is. It looks as though Travis and NRP have now got past him, and Thorsten Smith's car all over the place. Really unfortunate turnout of events here. Drama definitely unfolding. He may lose out to even more as this one goes on. Hopefully he can get it on the straight and narrow. Only 1.5 laps to go there, Thorsten. Keep it going, my friend. It looks as though we've got a battle here forming once again as XPT tries to turn on the taps against Traven. And they'll be hungry for Thorsten Smith now. 7 seconds to make up. Of course, Thorsten Smith's car crabbing all over the place. So that gap dropping and dropping as this race goes on. Final lap at the moment for our race leader, Coutinho. We'll jump onto him. Keep an eye out on the left-hand side of your screen for the live positions, though. Coutinho's had what has been really an impeccable race. Looks as though a few a slowdown penalty, should I say, were almost going to cost him until a mistake from Thorsten Smith, who up until around about lap 24, I think it was having an absolute blinder at stemming off the attacks of Coutinho lap after lap after lap. Second place is going to be Bruce Law, it looks like. And we see Thorsten there. He's ended up losing out to XPT and Traven. XPT now getting past Traven as well for that 6th place. So Thorsten Smith will hopefully manage to keep his car on track so he doesn't lose a further place to Lionsfoot. I think he'll be safe after that for sure, but hats off to our young driver from the Czech as he approaches the end of this 31 lap race. Comes around the final corner for what has been an impeccable win there. Back-to-back victories for Coutinho. Great race from him. Bruce Law ends up pretty much securing the 2nd place. You see back markers behind him. So great race strategy and consistent driving from Bruce Law to manage to keep it in 2nd. He'll be more than happy with that, I'm sure. Bit of a gift from him. Looks as though Travis is going to maintain the advantage over NRP. Let's have a look at how this one comes across. A flash of the lights there. Great racing from those two drivers. That battle's been consistent all the way through this race. It's PT managing to get ahead of Traven in that final couple of laps, and that's going to be enough for him to secure a 5th spot. So Traven comes across the line, 4-6. Looks as though Lionsfort has managed to get past Thorsten Smith in 8th place, so my heart is breaking for him. He still manages to struggle to keep that car on the straight and narrow as he crosses the line. And that is all we've got in store for tonight's feature. Let's have another run through our final positions after that feature race. Duftinio in first with Bruce Law in 2nd place, so back-to-back wins from Duftinio. Travis ends up getting into 3rd place for a podium spot ahead of that battle between him and NRP, who manages to make it into 4th. It's PT finishes the race in 5th with Traven in 6th. Lionsfort getting ahead of Thorsten as he limped his car home to finish in 8th place. Alright Turkish getting the better of VMX Rider to finish in 9th. And then Hurlo finishes in 11th with Uniclark and Fast As Gamer as our retirees. Uniclark looks as though he was retired at the end of the race, so he will get full qualification for his points. That was a retirement just because he didn't cross the finish line after the timer had run out. Fast As Gamer, though, retired at lap 15. That's sad to see, and unfortunately he's not going to score himself any points for that one. So that is all we've got time for our GT3 Championship. As I mentioned earlier, join us once again on Tuesday for the 3rd round of the RRTCC Touring Car Championship. I'll be hosting that one again, so if you don't like my voice, unfortunate for you, watch it in mute. Otherwise, we will see you later on in the week for our Thursday Night Lights or GT5 Genetic Championships. Once again, as I mentioned, if you're racing Project Cars 2 on the PlayStation 4 and you want to get involved in a clean racing community, head on over to www.robbinsracing.co.uk and join up there. You'll be greeted by a member of the staff, we'll get you introduced, and then we'll get you out on track as soon as possible. I've been your host for the evening. My name is Murphy, and I will see you once again on Tuesday night. Take care.